Hello, everyone. Within our course objectives of helping you to grow as a learning experience designer, this week we are going to look at standards and objectives, why they matter so much, and how our attention to writing them determines the level of rigor found in our assessments, activities, and instruction. There are three sets of standards that are really important for school librarians to know. First, the Common Core state standards guide the current performance objectives at the national level. Of course, many individual states have their own variations of these standards, so please, for this course, explore your own state's current standards if they are differing from the national standards. You will need these for your Assignment 3. The second set of standards that you must know are the AASL standards, or American Association of School Librarians, which sets our standards for the information literacy skills that we school librarians are responsible for. Many states, like my own here in Pennsylvania, have developed crosswalks between the standards, which makes it easy for librarians to bridge the AASL standards to the Common Core. Crosswalk documents like this open the door for collaborative conversations with teachers on our guided inquiry teams as we discuss how to meet their curricular standards while we integrate our information literacy standards into the same projects. Finally, the ISTE standards. The International Society for Technology and Education offers separate sets of standards for administrators, teachers, and students for the technological capabilities needed to meet current best practices in teaching, learning, and leading. I strongly encourage all pre-service teachers and librarians to become familiar with the ISTE standards and begin to offer proof of your attainment of these standards within the digital artifacts that you are putting into your professional portfolios. I can tell you, as someone who does interview librarians frequently, that this is something I am definitely looking for in those interviews. So, now we're going to talk about objectives. Objectives answer the question, what is it that your learners must be able to do? Objectives are written statements that make it clear what observable behaviors must be exhibited by your learners. So, once you know the standards you want to meet, you must then decide what learning objectives are going to prove that your students have achieved those standards. When you write objectives, you have to start all of your thinking with your targeted learners. What do they need to learn and why? And how are they going to demonstrate this learning? We are going to use Robert Mager's three-part objectives for this course. These objectives, of course, or Mager's objectives, give us guidance for how we should write our learning objectives of our students. And there are three parts. First, the performance. What will they be able to do? What will we see that proves the student has learned what we want them to learn? Next, the conditions. What are the conditions under which they will do this performance? In other words, what tools or supports will they have along the way? And finally, the criteria. What is the accepted level of performance? So let's take a look at some objectives and see if we can figure out what's the performance, the condition, and the criteria. So here's a very common one. Using the library's online catalog, the student will be able to locate 3 books related to their research topic within the class period. So here our simple statement of objective can be divided into the 3 parts. The performance is locating 3 books related to the research topic. The condition is that they are using the library's catalog, and the criteria is within the class period. So there's a certain time limit for them to achieve that objective. Now, sometimes you will see objectives written a little bit differently. So that's why here at the bottom, I have written it with the student will be able to, or SWBA, which we see sometimes. The student would be able to use the library's online catalog to locate 3 books related to their research topic within the class period. So personally, it does not matter to me if you start with the student will be able to, or if you prefer to use a different set of phrasing, as long as you have all 3 of the parts of the objective. Here's another one. Following group sharing of research findings, student teams will be able to post a succinct 1-sentence summary of their stance on voter ID laws. In this objective, what's the performance? What's the condition? And what's the criteria? Let's see if you're right. Our performance is that our students will post a summary of their stance on voter ID laws. The condition is that they have obviously been given some time for group sharing of research findings. And the criteria is that whatever they post has to be a succinct 1-sentence summary. Make sense? Let's try another one. Here's my objective for you. After reading and viewing examples about writing objectives, the student will be able to write a Mager-style 3-part learning objective for library instruction. So what's the performance I'm expecting of you? Under what conditions? And what's the criteria? So of course, your performance is that I expect that you'll be able to write a learning objective for library instruction with the condition of you've read and viewed examples about writing objectives, and of course the criterion is that these are Mager-style 3-part learning objectives. You can see more examples on the objectives reading page in week 8. Now, going one step beyond just writing objectives, we are also tasked as educators to think about complexity and rigor. In other words, how are we ensuring that the objectives we write are pushing our learners toward the level of performance truly needed to meet whatever standards we claim we are meeting? Well, to help us with this, there's something called Webb's DOK, or Webb's Depth of Knowledge. And this chart is also linked back in the course room. And what you have here with Webb's are 4 different levels of complexity. And this is referring to the level of complex thinking that the student would need to do to meet the objective if it is written with these different action verbs. So for example, any of the level 1 terms would be basic recall. So that's why you see things there like list, label, draw, and so on. In level 2, then you have more complexity with the skills and concepts themselves. So here's where you may be classifying, graphing, organizing, things like that. Once you move to level 3, you're getting more into strategic thinking. And this is where students will draw conclusions, appraise, differentiate, do some higher level comparing, and so on. And finally, level 4 is where we are extending thinking, and we're having students synthesize and design and create analyses and so on. So you can see the level of rigor goes up with each different level of complexity. There's more about DOK in this week's Objectives and Rigor readings. Also, in this week's discussions, you will get a chance to practice writing objectives at all 4 levels of depth of knowledge. Thanks, and I'll see you back in the course.